tonight, everybody. All right. Thank you guys all for coming out here. As you know, my name is Dr. Eliz Markowitz, and in 71 days, I will be your next state representative for House District 28. So I'd like to thank Daisy and Mauricio for hosting this event today. Thank you guys for always being so supportive of our goals to make a better society for everyone. Thank you to the pastors for coming out and your blessings. I truly appreciate that. Thank you to Cynthia Ginyard for coming out, showing a show of support to us. And Sean, thank you for uprooting your life for the next few months and coming down to help us win this district. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank my wonderful father, Norman, for being the best cheerleader that a kid could ask for. So, we have a big challenge ahead of us, but we're going to do it. I am running because I truly believe that we deserve better as Texans, not only in District 28 and in Fort Bend County, but in the state of Texas as a whole. There are so many things we need to fix, and it starts with education. As many of you know, education is a priority for me, and unfortunately, the state of education in Texas is not too great. We currently rank 38th in the nation when it comes to education. And we have students who leave high school and aren't prepared to be productive members of the global society in which we live. So we need to make sure that we are educating them properly. We are providing teachers with the adequate training and resources in order to develop this new generation of students that will lead the way. This ties directly into economic prosperity for our state. Texas has a huge economy, but we have a growing urban sprawl out in HD 28, and we don't have the economic businesses and support systems in place to allow for continued growth. So if we can create small business initiatives in this area that will allow new businesses and innovation to occur in HD 28 and in our county, we will continue this population growth and a successful economy and quality of life for all the citizens in this area. We also need to improve our healthcare system. Everybody in the state of Texas should be provided access to affordable healthcare. Period. Full stop. Unfortunately, in HD 28, there are a lot of rural areas. HD 28 is very interesting in its geographic makeup. So half of the district is in a very suburban area, and the other half is in a very rural area. And about 18 months ago, the last rural healthcare clinic closed down, which means that individuals in Simonton and Orchard have to go 30 minutes out of their way in order to reach an emergency medical center. If you can imagine, during an emergency situation, a 30-minute ambulance ride is the difference between life and death. And so we need to make sure that all of our constituents have access to these healthcare services. This also includes reducing the price of prescription drugs. I was talking to a woman, Ilyana, the other day, and she's currently paying $750 a week for her insulin. Can you imagine having to pay $3,000 a month just to sustain your life? That's almost an income for a lower middle class individual in this district. We should not be charging individuals to live. It's not part of our Constitution. We guarantee life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and life includes healthcare, and we need to make sure that we are doing that. That's absolutely real.
My diabetes medicine is $750.
There we go.
With the insurance, I have insurance.
Right, and that's the other thing. Texas has the greatest number of uninsured citizens in the entire United States. Out of every state, Texas is the worst. And we have the highest maternal mortality rate. So we need to make sure that we're addressing these issues. We can't claim that Texas is the greatest and the best if we can't fulfill that promise and live up to those words. So we need to put our words into actions and actually make a difference. We also need to address disaster relief. For those of you who are familiar with this area, you're familiar with the problems that happened during Hurricane Harvey, the 2-year anniversary of which was yesterday. So I know many of you in this room had to endure the hardships associated with that. And for example, Libby, you're still processing paperwork in order to be reimbursed for the problems due to the lack of infrastructure for flood mitigation and flood control. One of the problems is that in Fort Bend County, we did not have a disaster mitigation plan. So when the commissioners needed to make a decision in order to open up high schools, in the mandate it said that they had to meet in person, which is extremely difficult when you can't get anywhere due to the flooding. So we need to have an actionable plan in place so that when this happens again, as it did during the Memorial Day floods and the Tax Day floods, we are prepared for that situation. This includes investing in our infrastructure. And one of the things that we will notice, or if you're familiar with HD 28, is there is a lack of infrastructure funding. You go down the roads, there are many a pothole. We had to let out both bayous, right, or reservoirs, which ended up flooding much of HD 28. Houses that weren't being flooded by Hurricane Harvey were flooded when the Corps of Army Engineers let the reservoirs out. So we need to make sure that individuals in those areas are provided with actionable plans for how they can react to these situations when they happen in the future. One of the other things that's been increasingly problematic is school safety and gun violence. Within HD 28, in the past couple of weeks, 2 of the high schools in our district have faced gun threats to where they had to go on lockdown. To me, we should not be living in a society where we handle our arguments with threats of violence and with firearms. Less than 40 miles from here is Santa Fe, where many of you know that a year ago, a little over a year ago, many students, 10 students, 2 teachers were murdered. I'm friends with Rhonda Hart, whose daughter was murdered in her art class, and we have seen and followed as Governor Abbott has done absolutely nothing to protect our students and our teachers in these schools. The thing that happened that he did do in this past legislative session was approve the Marshall Plan. How many of you are familiar with the Marshall Plan? Of course, our future sheriff, Eric Fagan, is. So the Marshall Plan would essentially arm our educators. We would be putting guns into the hands of our teachers. And so in 1 minute, we would be asking our teachers, who have been trained to teach, not been trained as military operants, to protect our students and care for them. And then in the next breath, we're saying, but if anything happens, we need you to murder this student. This is not the society that I believe we should be living in. There are so many problems with fighting fire with fire and introducing more guns into the situation when we're not actually addressing the root cause of these issues. We need to understand why we are no longer able to talk to one another and work out our issues. We need to improve the number of guidance counselors that students have at schools. The Association of Guidance Counselors recommends that there's 1 guidance counselor for every 250 students in Texas. Currently, we have 1 guidance counselor for every 450 students. And we only have 1 school psychologist for every 2,900 students in Texas. These guidance counselors and these school psychologists aren't identifying problematic behavior, but they're simply filling out paperwork. They're not doing their intended job because we don't have the resources to properly fund enough counselors and psychologists to address the root problem. We need to address the hate that has encompassed our state and our nation, that's currently being spread by individuals in the current administration. We should be a united force, founded in the humanity, in the unity, in our diversity, not simply rising up to take out violence, to do violent actions against individuals with whom we disagree. That is not the America that I was born into, and it's not the America that I am proud to be a part of. So I implore everyone to get involved, make a change, talk to your friends and neighbors. We have a massive opportunity coming up on November 5th. We can flip this State House district. I have zero doubts that on November 6th, as Cynthia Gignard said, we will wake up and we will know that HD 28 is now a solidly blue district, which is... There we go. This is extremely important because Texas is going to face redistricting in 2020. The maps that will be drawn in 2020 will be in place for the next 10 years. This is our chance to make a change and make a difference. But I cannot do this alone. I need each and every one of you to help. If you're willing to volunteer, if you're willing to call voters, if you're willing to walk and knock on doors, that's amazing. And you can sign up over at the computers when you walked in. And more importantly, I hate to ask for money, but I need your money. There's a reason that we said this was a fundraiser, and it's because we expect a challenge, and we expect a fierce challenge, and we want to be able to meet that challenge head on. So if you can donate $500 or $250 to help us make a change in this district, I would be eternally appreciative, and I will do everything in my power to fight for each one of you on November 6th when we win this seat and we start turning Texas blue. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm Dr. Eliz Markowitz, and I will be your next state representative for House District 28.